Assalamu alaikum and greetings, everyone. Welcome to our first interview today under Project X. Today, I am joined by Mr. Arif Saeed, the visionary CEO of Propelling Service Limited Industries, Pakistan. With decades of experience, he's a stalwart in the business arena, adept and steering through economic challenges. In this interview, we delve into Mr. Saeed's insights on local businesses amidst Pakistan's economic turmoil, gaining valuable perspectives from a seasoned industry luminary. It's an absolute honor to have you here, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. So without further ado, we'll start with our first question. So, sir, my first question to you is a very basic, simple question. From your perspective as a CEO of one of Pakistan's largest homegrown companies, what recent hardships have your company faced during this time of economic turmoil, and what have you done to counter them?
Thank you very much. I think I'd just narrow down the two things from my point of view of running a business into consumer uncertainty and I think banking and trade issues. So I think on the consumer uncertainty, I think it's probably even more important than dealing with the actual impact of the economic debacle that we have gone through. So I think consumers need to have some predictability of pricing, policies, quality, service, all of this. I think when consumers didn't know if you would be able to supply, for example, an appliance, if you were a Dolans, or a car, if you were a Honda Atlas car company, or tires, if you service tires. I think that was a huge issue. And I think related to that was the runaway inflation that ate into people's wallets. And at every level of the economy, people struggled with decisions of allocating resources. So all the products that we were making didn't factor in the first 6 items that people typically invest in. So that's things like flour or atta, and then cooking oil, sugar, tea. All these items are those such that they help sustain life on a day-to-day basis. So I think this uncertainty was a huge problem. We didn't know what to do. Should we just try to help the consumer and help our sales momentum by absorbing price increases or cost increases, or should we continue to pass them on? So that was the first big challenge. The second challenge was, I think the banking sector very rapidly realized that the total limits they had for private sector lending were being eaten up by devaluation. So previously, if you could finance 100,000 tons of a commodity, I think your existing rupee-based facilities would maybe be good enough for 40% less. And so they had to pick and choose who they would lend to. A lot of people did not get additional borrowing, which was necessary in order to keep your operations at a constant level. But equally, other people also had issues with opening letters of credit because of the current account imbalance and the fact that the state bank had stopped supplying dollars to the interbank market. And so not only were rates crazy, you could not get permission to import certain items. So I think these two challenges represented a big part of the uncertainty that
you faced.
Brought down large-scale manufacturing and limited our trade.
Yes, you make a very good point with consumer uncertainty, and then obviously from the producer's point of view, the uncertainty as to whether we should absorb it or pass it on to consumers. And that brings me up very nicely to the second question is, obviously I'm trying to keep this interview apolitical, but I think talking about economy without government policies is not very possible. So what government economic policies do you feel as if implemented, we can avoid this sort of uncertainty in the future if this ever happens? And should they specific ventures or verticals like investment? So are there any policies you have in mind that the government should implement to reduce this sort of uncertainty?
So I think the first level of uncertainty was caused by subsequent governments reneging basically on the basic tenets of the IMF program. So if you're in an IMF program, you are bound to a discipline on fiscal deficits, current account management, lots of things that are involved, power sector deficits, the state of state-owned enterprises, all the problems that afflict an economy. So I think the first departure came in February 2022 when the Imran Khan government, faced with almost certain failure in defending the vote of no confidence, embarked upon an ambitious plan to fund a reduction in power costs and fuel costs by additional spending the additional collection of the FBR. Now, the additional collection of the FBR was all on account of petroleum products. It was indirect taxes on petroleum products. And then when you slash the prices of these products, the revenue also goes down. So I think we started a cycle where the current account rapidly became strained because we were importing more and more petroleum products because their price was heavily subsidized. And on the other hand, the market prices for oil and gas were going up. So added to that was the Ukraine war that further increased the prices of petrochemicals and certainly of gas, which we import in the form of LNG or liquefied natural gas. So I think that was the first nail in the coffin. And then any departure from subsequent conditionalities that the PDM government, who had eventually Ishaq Dar as finance minister. So anything that they did in the future, in the period leading up to their tenure, the first 5-6 months of their tenure, also compounded the uncertainty on whether we would in fact default on our commercial debt as a country. So I think this political scenario and the fact that parties were trying to be populist at a time of crisis really hastened the demise of the Pakistan economy.
True. You mentioned the IMF deal as well, and I remember jab IMF deal आई थी at that time, there was lots of uncertainty that the IMF deal is not good, it is good. So could you clear some misconceptions regarding the IMF deal, and was it good for us? Was it necessary for us?
So this deal was reached in 2019. It was necessary even back then because we were struggling. We had started maintaining an unsustainable fiscal deficit, a current account deficit. And the external account was really struggling. We were bleeding $1 billion a month with no idea as to where to get this $1 billion from. Excuse me. So it wasn't a new thing. I think we needed to remain in the discipline of the IMF program in order to avoid the ultimate insult to our economy, which would be as a result of a runaway devaluation. And obviously, to arrest that and to arrest inflation, we had to increase our interest rates. So there was nothing fundamentally wrong in the IMF program. It was very strict, but we walked into it because of our own needs.
True. So I'd like to shift the conversation away from economics. And obviously, as your company is very heavily involved in exportation as well. And there's lots of talk around, obviously, students, when we study geography and Pakistan studies, we have lots of local cottage industries that can help contribute to our foreign exchange reserves. So I just want to talk about, do you believe like local craft industries like in KPK or in other these industries, what scope do they have in exports? And can they actually help our economy, or do they require some sort of assistance from us?
Yeah, so every little bit helps. But I think the kind of deficits we run, we need some world scale industry to come and help us. So if you want to things like cottage industries, local crafts, or even engineering industries, I think there is a long gestation period for this. And I think that really pushes it um, further and further um, away from a meaningful number. So I think it's good to work on all ideas. And to answer your second part of your question, I think all small um, and medium enterprises require support in order to export. They don't have the money to send people or exhibit in fairs, which are quite important for um, developing export markets. Some of them also are not very cost conscious or aligned with latest trends. So maybe they don't label their goods well enough, package them. They have issues with logistics. So exporting is something that you need to be focused on for a longer period. I'm all for supporting small and medium enterprises by giving them support from the Export Development Fund or the Export Promotion Bureau, which is now Trade Development, I think, Authority of Pakistan. So yes, it's a interesting thought, but I think the top exporters in Pakistan are exporting in the region of $500 to $600 million each, and there's not enough of these people around. So we need world scale export manufacturing or export of any goods or services to get us out of this hole.
True. And that brings me on to my second point is, when we talk about countries that neighbor us, for example, India, and how they're actually a pioneer in fintech industries and service-based and technology-based industries. And when we see their exports, it's usually mainly largely related to technologies, and how that's actually revolutionized them into one of the world's fastest growing economies. So obviously, with the failure of airlift, as we've seen quite recently, do you think that Pakistan has a lack of fintech industries or technology skill-based industries? And is that keeping us back from competitors? What should Pakistan be aiming towards in the future, where we see a digital age of AI and technology? So what do you think in that regard Pakistan should be aiming towards, and especially the youth?
So thank you for your question. I think that's a long-term goal, and we need to be more patient in giving these industries time to develop. I think the government should put in place a series of incentives for companies like this, and then wait for a few years while they reach the maturity or adopt the technology to do well in these areas. Um, the Indian export landscape is certainly, they have a lot of companies that have done really well with in areas like fintech and other aspects of artificial intelligence. But I think a lot of the Indian companies that export in the IT sector are doing business process outsourcing, call centers, software development, more conventional things. So I think there's a room for all of these. My ultimate comment on this would be that we need to be patient with it and give them time to attain global scale and efficiency.
Thank you so much for this interview, sir. It was very insightful. If there's anything you would like to send a message out to the youth or the viewers watching this, as aspiring business minds, so anything that you would like to say?
Yeah, so I think we have seen a lot of ups and downs and upheavals in the Pakistan economy, but our company has survived for more than 75 years. And I think one of the things that has brought us here is diversification. The other thing that has brought us here is export. So I think these are important lessons for aspiring industrialists or people in business to aim at. And I think really Pakistan remains a very promising country to invest in, despite the trials of the recent past. So I'm quite optimistic on the future of Pakistan. And I think people who have a flair for entrepreneurship should certainly look at starting up something on their own.
Thank you so much, sir, once again.
Thank you, Hassan.